There we go. I do want to make sure that I thank all of my fellow collaborators in this process. I was so sorry to miss last week, and I'm about halfway through the recording, but I think Nancy did just an incredible job talking about the surveys and Reid Consulting with all of their situational assessment, mapping, and almost preliminary feasibility study costing for everybody. And then to have John Kostelnick walk through the ag tools, I think was probably very interesting for all of you. And what we've tried to do in this session, so in prior broadband breakthroughs, we made you all do a lot more work coming up with a 15-minute presentation on your own. But this time, because many of you completed the survey that Reid sent out, we were able to pluck some interesting responses and learnings from what you wrote about in your survey responses. Plus, we went back to um, the work that you did with the various partners and pick and choose some highlights to talk about. And so Reid is going to walk you through a set of slides. This is meant to be extremely interactive. And he did reach out to the team leaders and ask at various points whether you would speak to this particular thing that we've cited on the slide. So it's going to be a little bit of backing and forthing. Rather than have me get in the way, I think Reid has put together this slide deck and knows exactly when he is going to call on each of you. And then what will happen at the end is I will come back and talk a little bit about next steps for the teams. And then we're going to let Hillary Rains from the Illinois Office of Broadband talk with you about the community engagement managers and their roles and how they can be helpful to you. And then we're going to put you in breakout rooms for however long you want to be there. This is still going to last 90 minutes, believe it or not. But the breakout rooms will just allow you to ask some specific questions of Hillary and Alicia. So we have the two northern counties, Lake and McHenry, going into Alicia's room, and we have the central counties going into Hillary's room because Ling Ling was not able to make it today. So that is the agenda. And so with that, are there any questions before I turn it over to Reid? Again, just because I might not get a chance at the end, I want to thank Reid Consulting Group, Tom and his team, and Nancy, of course, our long-term partner in Illinois, for delivering this program with the support of the Illinois Office of Broadband and in coordination with the I'm sorry, the other way around, with the support of the Illinois Broadband Lab in coordination with the Illinois Office of Broadband. So thank you again for this 10 plus weeks with us. And Reid, it's over to you to go through the specific agenda. Thank you.
Great. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Adrian.
I will get started, but just showing off and going through exactly kind of the areas that I'll highlight. So start with talking about the importance of having a community team, which many of you have built or pulled upon already existing ecosystems that you have in your counties, and how that will spur broadband development and adoption programming going forward. We'll talk about the situational assessments, broadband maps and gap analysis, cost modeling that Reid Consulting Group has brought you through and will be delivering to you, and how that is going to be used going forward. We'll talk about community survey learnings and analysis insights from the survey reports. We'll talk about ISP outreach insights, kind of the learnings that we've had there, specific stories, and kind of broad takeaways. And then we'll talk about some statistics, both from the survey and from John Kostelnick's analysis about agricultural data. And then we'll kind of move into the next steps that communities have identified and next steps for the Broadband Breakthrough team, and how to connect better with the whole Illinois ecosystem, like Adrian said at the end, we'll kind of shift over to the community engagement managers and give them some time to speak with you all. So with that, I'll get started with that slide on teamwork. We were really impressed with Lake County's involvement with, this existing broadband and digital equity ecosystem. They all showed up to the situational assessment meeting. They had the largest participation in that meeting. It was a really fruitful discussion, and we thought it was just indicative of, a large amount of investment and time in thinking about these things for, not just in this program, but, in time before, and we're sure in time ongoing. There's broad representation from organizations around the county, which allows for consensus building. And with that larger team, implementation of next steps and future projects will be more effective and more efficient. So I'll step away for a second, and I'd like to give, I think, Kay just a moment to speak about that process of consensus building and the large team that you all have in Lake County.
Yeah, thanks, Reid. Really appreciate that. And let me get on camera to join you all this morning. Good morning, everyone. Kate Crandall, Digital Equity Manager for Lake County. And it's interesting because this process has been a short period of time, but we've been able to get a lot done. And by short period of time, I mean we began the implementation of the different programs and this collaboration that Reid mentioned really intensively last March. And so I think that comes from great support from um, our county board and also local leaders. I think Tom is, and I see Darren, yeah. So, for example, Tom and Darren, who are on the call, are from the city of Waukegan, and they sit across the street from us, but in a different level of government. And so by pulling them into this, they can advocate for the Waukegan community and pull the mayor in on these issues. And so, you know, I think focusing on those partnerships has been really key for us. They're not the only city that we're collaborating with, but they've been a great support. And I think a further part of that investment is that the county, we're looking to invest in them as well. So with ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan Act dollars, we're working on implementing a public Wi-Fi project in Waukegan. And so by, investing in them, then they're investing back in this process with us. So that's just one example. And then I also want to speak to the digital navigator piece and having them attend the situational assessment. At the beginning of the year, it was just myself on our team and Betsy supporting from county admin. And now we have 7 people on our team. And so in the last 4 months and a week, they've been training and really getting their, starting to get into the community and kicking off digital navigator workshops and courses and distributing computers. And an essential piece is that they understand all aspects of our program and where they fit into that. And so as part of their training, we really wanted to have them in their onboarding to have them participate in this so that if we have questions from the community, they can speak to that piece because it's really an integral part of their job in teaching digital skills and helping folks to understand what the Lake County Digital Growth Initiative is. And so from my perspective, that's the critical point in having the digital navigators be a part of this. And also, honestly, a lot of them are very personally interested in what's happening because they live in Lake County. And so not only are the folks that we're involving in our group essential parts of our team, but this is where they live. And so their families are here, their friends are here, and they have maybe a personal investment in the implementation of broadband infrastructure and what that will look like going forward. So I I am so glad that we had all of them to participate. And is Did Reid get knocked off? I can't see him. Just want to make sure that I addressed that piece. Is there anything else you wanted me to touch on at this point?
Okay, I think it was, thank you very much for doing that. Look, you are the biggest county in the group, and you have been at this for a long time. So I think you serve as an aspiration for many of the other counties on that call. I mean, you have an extraordinary number of resources at your disposal, and your county board has really made a commitment to this as a driver of so many things that we know that broadband can do. And so thank you for talking about that. I know your team will move forward, and we're going to talk a little bit later about your broadband provider situation, but I really appreciate this. Now, if Reid has been knocked off, I can share the presentation. So let me figure out, excuse me, guys, this will take me just a second. Um, okay, here we go. Can everybody see my screen? Yes? Okay, great. And so I think, let me just scroll down to, okay, here's the agenda, and we were on the importance of community teamwork. Is anybody from Macoupin County on the call? If not, I wanted to say that what we found very interesting about Macoupin is even though we were meeting with a small group of individuals, they chose to have separate meetings with their economic development committee to keep them up to date outside of our traditional Zoom calls. And so, you can bring people into the program, but it's also really important, I think, to, create an infrastructure around broadband development and to pull various groups into your orbit and keep them informed from this point going forward. So I just really appreciated that Macoupin set up that structure that's a little bit different, I think, than Kay's. I think you had 20 people on that situational assessment call. It was very impressive, Kay. Thank you for doing that. Okay, let's go to the situational assessments and broadband maps. So we have a few little takeaways that I think touch on many of the issues that Tom Reid and his colleagues talked about. And so I'm again unsure about where each group was supposed to speak. And so let me just run through. So Fulton County, do I have people? Yes, I have people from Fulton here. I see June. Thank you very much. But thanks, June. So part of looking at your situational assessment is to figure out who is doing what in your county, not only who has current service, there you go, Reid, who has current service, but also who has been awarded in previous rounds um, uh, awards or grant funds in order to begin building. And Reid, with this, I'm going to turn this over to you as soon as I finish this point. But the point is to try to figure out current and future activity from these broadband providers. And Reid, was June supposed to talk specifically here about the mid-century fiber discovery, or did you just want to go through that?
No, this is that's just one point on Fulton. I'm gonna have June speak a little bit later.
Okay, great, great.
Sorry about that. There's workmen on next door, and I think the power went off just for 1 second, so my Wi-Fi kicked off, and I had to restart my computer. So sorry about that.
Well,
And
that's
here,
all right. We made do.
yeah, thanks for filling
Thank
in.
God the boss knows how to share her screen now after all these years of doing it. Okay, I will stop sharing, and this is you now, Reid.
Yep, this is me.
Okay, great.
All right. Right. So thanks for filling in. And so I think you just talked about Fulton, or am I picking up there?
Yeah, just you're picking up after Fulton.
Okay. Yeah. So um, really pleased with the situational assessments overall. Like I'm sure Adrienne already touched on. It's just always really great to hear and kind of ground truth some of the data that you see in the speed tests and maybe audit, some other things. Maybe the speed tests aren't getting some uh, inaccuracies on the ground that might tell us some different things. And so the UCLA data in McHenry is a specific kind of point where the team said that it was an accurate depiction. The speed tests um, showed the speeds that residents are experiencing across the county and gives some reality to the picture that the FCC is not present. So the FCC is presenting a much rosier picture of speeds offered in the county than are actually being delivered, which is what the UCLA data shows. And having that in your back pocket and kind of giving some reason to show, companies know that these folks aren't receiving the speeds they're being promised. So there's a need for additional investment, whether through, if the locations aren't BEAD eligible, through private investment or a different program, that those locations are still in need of infrastructure development. That brings us to awards that are, blocking BEAD eligibility in a number of our counties, and that's in ascending order. There, those Marshall, Fulton, Montgomery, and Macoupin, an ascending order of how affected those counties are, specifically from RDOF awards, majority of which coming from AMG NextLink, which AMG was the bidding entity in the RDOF program, and NextLink is sort of the face of those builds, the company that is doing those builds. So in a previous cohort, we managed to connect NextLink's market development manager to a few counties that were in similar positions to get an update and some commitments on the build progress, since I know a lot of you haven't heard from NextLink. You have this idea of them building, but there's no kind of concrete evidence of them taking steps towards the build, and there's no communication going on. And with that, I think if you're willing, Bill and Montgomery, I know you spoke a little bit about in your survey coverage meeting about NextLink, and would like to hear how that RDOF award, has impacted the county's ability to plan and broadband, and any conversations that you've had with NextLink.
Thank you, Reid. We have had some specific conversation with NextLink and asked them some very detailed questions about their plans in Montgomery County, and have gotten some response, and some of it has been helpful, and I'll get into that. But right now they've got 11 active sites. They intend to have 15 existing sites by the end of this year, a total of 16 planned. They've been a little bit late in our mind about marketing and advertising and reaching out, and we've got a good number of landowners, agricultural type people, farmers that could benefit from this. So they're I know that the BEAD approach is strong on fiber and fiber optics, but the approach that NextLink has taken is to build towers, and they have built out enough, quite a few towers in Montgomery County, have assured us that they're going to be delivering quality, reliable speeds. But the proof will be in the pudding. they're kind of slow to get subscribers going in our mind, as I mentioned. And yes, the towers are there, and we hopefully have they've built towers that are in good locations, and I believe they have from the research that's been done and provided by your teams. We appreciate that very much. They've we've asked them specifically about tree and leaf intervention and the possibilities of limitations with that, and they've assured us that technology is coming fast, and they may have that on some of their towers to penetrate some of those obstacles. And again, we want to see the proof. So we're somewhat between a rock and a hard place, in that we can't really actively pursue BEAD funding, but at the same time, the Nestlink people using the RDOF awards to build out Montgomery County, and so I think it's a wait and see kind of a process. One thing we did ask them is, will they lease out their towers eventually? Will they have leasing ability to let other ISP providers connect and maybe take it from there? And they've indicated that they are willing to do that. I think that part of the limitation is going to be maybe addressed in some information that we got the other day from our conversation with Nancy, and that is we've had good response from our agricultural community, and a number of them have indicated a willingness to use their topography and their bins, so to speak, or higher equipment locations that and make that available. And so we've shared that with the Nestlink people to make sure that they're aware that there is a group of landowners that have indicated their willingness to be cooperative in making their facilities available for Nestlink build out. And we shared that, as I say, with Nestlink, and we hope that'll be effective. So it's been kind of dubious to us in terms of their aggressiveness with marketing and getting a subscriber base, but at the same time, it looks like they have been actively building out towers, and so the proof will be in the pudding, I think, in the months to come.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Bill. And it sounds like you all have really, it's the most productive relationship we've heard of, and maybe that's just as time has gone on, Nextlink has had freed up capacity to coordinate more with counties. But it's great to hear that you have that relationship, and we're going to work hard to make sure that the other counties in the cohort that also have Nextlink awards, if you don't have that same relationship, we'd like to reach out to the Nextlink contact that we have to try and get you all some contact with them, update. So if it sounds like you have it covered over there, Bill, but if you'd like more introduction, we can certainly help out.
Well, we've got good contacts, and they've been to a couple of our county board meetings, and it's a kind of a squeaky wheel situation. You just have to stay on them, and unfortunately, that's the case. We got to be persistent and squeaky wheel, and we've gotten some more detail from them, but it's not been without some gentle nudges along the way.
Yeah. Well, that's good too. That's what getting together and pooling your resources is for, is pressing these companies to do what they promised to. So that's great. Moving on, just briefly mention kind of the last point on, or no, not the last point on situational assessments, but Pike County, their maps confirm the difficult topography in the county for fiber build, particularly I think on the western edges of the county, fiber to the home builds are going to be difficult in the near term. So alternative technologies will likely be needed to deliver 120 to the entire county. And that's something that I think the county has a full understanding of and willing to support alternative technologies like I know a couple of other counties in the cohort understand. Moving on to another slide, just this is briefly kind of a dive into Marshall, and I know Travis isn't able to be here this morning, I don't think. Speak up if not, Travis. But I'll just briefly go through this. Marshall County is an interesting situation as the Illinois River bisects the county, and it kind of creates two different broadband challenges and sets of opportunities on each side of the river. So the western half of the county is already primarily served by a local fixed wireless provider who offers tiered service. All of their advertised tiers are below 120, though some tests seem to test above it on the Euclid tests. But most do not. So that they're testing at far below 120. The black dots on that map there, like you're all familiar with in your own situational assessments, are blackouts from other FCC programs largely. So RDOF awards, it's largely a NextLink award like we just mentioned. So hopefully over the next couple years, those locations will all be served by decent fixed wireless infrastructure. On the eastern half of the county, you can see those hexes, which are the BEAD project area units, and the grid dots are locations. Lots of eligibility on the eastern half of the county and lots of dense population areas near those BEAD eligibility units that will kind of likely enable the provider that becomes the eventual awardee of BEAD funds will be easy for them to pick up those addresses. So the eastern half of the county seems to us is in a pretty good spot as BEAD approaches. Moving into the community survey, want to highlight strongly Fulton County's survey effort. Had the highest percentage of their population surveyed, was active in communicating with Nancy on their effort utilizing cluster and convenience sampling. County is, I think, interested in reopening the survey this summer, which is great to focus in on some areas, collect more data. That's a quote on the right there from their broadband stories section of the survey. They have received just so many comments, and always great to read through them and kind of solidify. For me, at least, I tend to read through, at least scroll through all of those comments when Nancy finishes those reports, so I can get some, feeling for what each of the communities in the cohort are experiencing, all of the broadband stories that people experience on the ground. And extremely high level of respondents having no internet connection or speed slower than 120 in the survey, which with the fairly high response rate indicates, that there's a lot to be desired in the county. So I want to turn it over to June really quickly just to speak about the survey promotion effort that took place and the strategies that you all took to get such a successful response rate.
Our team leader, Michelle Spiva, is not available this week, and we haven't talked with Nancy about our results, but we're looking forward to that. Fulton County is very rural and sparsely populated. So our team's kind of small, but it was composed of people with what I consider to be kind of niche assets. Michelle is with the Spoon River Spoon River Economic Development, and she's a liaison between local government and businesses. So we started it with her speaking to the county board She had several newspaper articles in our one county paper, did Facebook advertising and reached out through businesses, sent emails. She keeps a database of like not-for-profits, churches, service organizations. So we started that way. We had a meeting April 11th. I feel like we got results from our survey and we weren't satisfied with our numbers. So we kind of got together. Our teammates include retirees, which is nice. We have a little extra time. Retired government workers, educators, business people, entrepreneurs. The Fairview area teammate, the one with the worst connection, internet-wise, did some very powerful outreach to churches, and also through involvement with the Illinois Extension Office, such as HEA. We have a teammate who works with the Farm Bureau, so she had the ability to reach out to the agricultural sector. I'm an educator, so I have a lot of former students and families. We went down our contact, just personal Facebook, people you keep on your phone, and made personal appeals. One of our teammates is a retiree from the Fulton County Assessment Office, so she has kind of a special skill with maps and knowing back roads and putting together Excel spreadsheets. So I have 40 years on the job. So our plan was to put as many pin marks across the county as possible, reaching every nook and cranny. So once we found out, it's like, oh, we're just not getting the responses we wanted. She spearheaded this kind of a battle plan. The goal was to get as many flyers into as many public places as possible, such as libraries and post offices, and make as many face-to-face appeals as possible. So we began a cross-country road trip in Farmington, our northeast corner, taking back roads and things, and ending up on our second day of effort in Vermont and Table Grove, which is at the southwest area. We found that people love to talk about this topic. They're very receptive. We listened to people at laundromats, banks, coffee shops, dive bars. It was all very fascinating and fun. We found 2 small communities that just embodied the most desperation. They had the highest participation rates, it appears, although we have not gone over things officially with Nancy. One of them is a small farming community called Bernadotte. It has an IPAVA address. It's isolated because it's down in a valley by the river. The terrain does not allow for cell phone service, much less wired internet access. They have one business, a rural cafe, and that owner agreed to hand out flyers to her. All the locals come in every day. And so we had I think 16 or 18 flyers from that one community of people that don't have internet access. They were on it. Another small community was Weematuck, which has a Cuba address. And they're also, these are people who live at homes that are on reclaimed mining ground. Their homes are along lovely lakes. There's a recreational vibe there. And their homeowners association really promoted this. And a majority of the households there seem to respond. So in conclusion, what we found was that people are very frustrated and very hopeful. Some people were quite happy with mid-century, and others are waiting for promises to be fulfilled. One of my favorite quotes from the survey was, "I tried all week long to take this survey." So that's Fulton County.
Thank you, Jen. That's really so rich, I think. And I really admire your whole team's the amount that you all poured into it, it's clear. And got into the going, door to door, going to different businesses and hearing stories. In addition to the other, more traditional media promotion strategies, really admirable and just it's super energizing for I think all of us who, work in more of a maybe are fortunate enough to have uh, decent internet coverage or connections, but work in the broader field of broadband deployment and advocacy to hear those stories. It's really powerful. So I just appreciate that.
Yeah, seconding Reid's comments there, this sort of community involvement is going to be so critical to keep the focus on the lack of broadband. It's a lot of people just don't understand how much of rural America is in the same kind of situation, and I really applaud you as well.
Yeah, just really, really great. And I see, Nancy saying that you all meet next week, so I'm sure a lot of great things will come out of that meeting, and I know you all keep trudging ahead and getting more and more input from your community members and striving to get every last home connected. That community in the valley that doesn't even have cell coverage. They'll one day thank you all for the effort that you've put in starting now. So thanks. Move into the ISP outreach section, where I think McHenry County, Kim highlighted their efforts, and I think Adam is also very articulate and has been at this for a long time before this program, building relationships with ISPs, both in the county and surrounding, forming relationships to spur investment in the county. So we were particularly, Kim highlighted the connections with sharing communications from Wisconsin into the county. And yeah, just would like to give Adam a chance to speak about the work that you've done over the last, couple years and then in this program.
Sure. Thank you, Reid. Again, I apologize. There's still construction going on behind me, but I'll give it the best as I can. What I guess just to this point, what was very interesting is what we've been working with multiple ISPs. That is true. But as we've gone through this cohort, what we found is these smaller communications, these local exchange carriers that have been in electric or telecommunications for some time in areas within reach of our county, I guess is what I should say, that we've never heard of. But even for the 4 years I've been doing this, when you hear from the Frontiers and the Comcasts and the i3s and others, sharing communications and strategic management are people we've never heard of, but they keep showing up, they keep popping up, they keep saying they're interested. It's been a really good experience for us. And really, it just speaks to what we've been doing. And Reid, you hit the nail on the head with this. The county board is highly active and motivated to support ISP applications for BEAD. We're not shy about throwing a resolution, and our county board chairman is not shy about throwing a letter out behind somebody. Even these new ones that are popping up, because they recognize, even for being a more conservative county, they're willing to engage these smaller local exchange carriers or kind of cohort government joint purchasing type areas that are willing to serve the county. So it's been a really good experience.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah. The county board, your assurance, I was on the call with you and the representative from Shawnee and hearing you.
Right.
It sounds like every time you probably have that experience a lot of speaking to an ISP rep and saying, my board's behind this, and immediately their eyes light up, I'm sure, almost every time. Just knowing that you have a board that cares about this issue and is ready to mobilize behind it. So I don't think that's lost on anyone. That's a big part of your success and will be a big part of your success going forward. So moving into sort of a broader trend in the ISP outreach. In several cases, ISPs have been reluctant to share information about their Wave 1 applications and their plans for Wave 2 applications, citing requirements from the Illinois Office of Broadband. Devin last week or maybe at the beginning of this week, shared a note that she sent to all of the applicants to the Connect Illinois Round 4 program, BEAD program, encouraging them to share this information with communities. The confidentiality requirements in the program are to prohibit collusion between applicants, not cooperation with local communities, which is, of course, a huge part of the program. So if you were one of those counties that was talking with certain ISPs, I think Comcast was one of them that was reluctant to share information, they'll have received this communication from Devin and should be more willing to, share their plans for the application even before the results come out, and their plans perhaps for applications in round 2. So we're really thankful for Devin to take in that input and respond accordingly and direct the ISPs to be more involved with the communities. I think there's a lot of requirements in the BEAD program. Obviously, we've talked about, and there are other concerns that providers have that might be preventing them from applying, but there's just so many requirements. I think sometimes they're more guarded than they need to be because they don't want to, lead with the wrong foot and get themselves in trouble. So we're thankful to the Office of Broadband for taking that step to correct that misunderstanding. A more specific slide about strategic management, who I think every county in the cohort received at least one email from at the start of the program or prior to the program asking for letters of support in the BEAD program. Their model, once we got a chance to sit down and speak with Matt from Shawnee, who's one of the 7, or is that 7 there or 8, 7 companies that make up strategic management. We really like their model. The strategy that they took at the beginning and just kind of very generically asking for support without a ton of information, I think correctly rose some suspicion in a lot of counties. And it makes sense because you're not just going to throw your weight behind someone. You don't know what they're offering. You don't know who they are, where they're coming from. But we are pleased, that after speaking with them, they're a group of smaller providers, more locally and sort of incumbent providers, or locally owned and operating providers that are pooling their resources together to make BEAD applications more feasible. And so we're really happy that they're at least interested in applying for areas in all 7 of the counties in the cohort, and encourage everyone to keep coordinating with them as time moves on, at least approaching round 2. Since they didn't submit any round 1 applications, we're hoping that they submit many applications in round 2 for each of your counties.
Yeah, and just reiterating what Reid's saying, we joked with Matt about maybe rebranding a little bit because strategic management's kind of a vague title, and he laughed about that too, saying they were just searching for a name in a bit of a hurry to get it all together, and that their small companies don't have a lot of assets. It's not like they're going to hire a marketing company, but they've got an impressive track record of serving their local people well, spending the money the way they said they would. So that's why we're bringing this up and saying, yeah, you want to work with strategic management because you're really working with these small ISPs that are very dedicated to their local communities.
I'll add to, sorry, I've had a little bit of a venue change because of the storms. I'll add to that one of the things that was interesting that Matt said was all of these groups have been doing this on their own before BEAD, and then coming into BEAD, part of the collective opportunity for them is that they intend to hold each other accountable. And that's really important because they don't want another group to sort of hurt their reputation of doing what they said they would, and getting these builds done quickly. Some of the Shawnee builds we've looked into, and we've been very impressed with not only that they delivered what they said they would, but the time frame that they did it and the quality with which they did it. And so the idea of this being a collective opportunity, but also a collection of these smaller businesses holding each other accountable to continuing to do what they say they're going to do, we find really attractive.
Yeah, well put. Really encourage you all to keep up your coordination with them. And if you haven't, I don't know how many of the counties have been able to meet with Matt. Encourage you to do so if you haven't. So I'll move on to agricultural analysis. You saw these updated, completed maps from John Kostenick last week. So what you see there on the right is Pike County's unserved additional yield estimates for corn and soy. That for both unserved and underserved, Pike County would stand to have an additional $10 million of annual yield if all farmers had access to high quality broadband and adopted standard fixed, precision ag technology. And 64% of ag entities surveyed were willing to host fixed wireless infrastructure on their property, which was one of the higher percentages in the cohort this time around, indicating that farmers are aware of this problem and want to be able to have better access to precision ag and just better access to broadband in general. I want to give Jamie or Jenna from Pike just a quick opportunity to speak on the impact of broadband for the agricultural community, and any other insights you have towards this or more broadly.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, Jenna is not on the call. She's our Farm Bureau person, and so obviously has a much more connection to the ag community than I do. But yeah, obviously Pike County is a very rural county. And because, as you mentioned previously in the call, our topography is, we have hills, we have trees, we have valleys. It does make, fiber to the home very difficult. And even the wireless connections can be difficult. I remember one of the comments in our survey results was that this person was in a valley and it didn't matter where the radio transmitter or whatever was located, they couldn't get it. And so there were also a number of results or survey responses that said, they were using Starlink and it worked great, but it's very expensive. And, that's pretty common. Obviously, in such a rural county we have cornfields and soybean fields everywhere. And so the ability to utilize precision ag tools and software would be just enormous, and we just don't have it. There are people that said they can make phone calls and they can text from their field, but that's all they can do. And that's just not good enough for us. And of course, students that need to do homework or, we don't, like, remote workers are kind of out of luck. And if they are outside of the towns, our towns have really good service. And there were a couple of different responses that Adams Fiber was doing really well where they were serving. So that's good to hear, but we just need to get that everywhere. But agreed that the wireless is going to be probably where we have to really focus. And I was glad to see that so many were willing to host those transmitters on their towers and grain bins and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing to highlight, which I should have put on the slide, is you'll have, which we mentioned last time, John's vertical asset map can be
Yes.
easily paired with your survey responses of those 64% of ag entities. So you can find the corresponding addresses and locations that you can directly
Yeah.
reach out to them.
And
Let
that'll be
the
very
or the
helpful.
yeah.
I know he
Yeah.
said that they were going to try to take, getting rid of all the trees if it's possible, and I feel really sorry for him trying to do that in our plan.
Yeah, you can tell and on those maps that it's you're dealing with a lot when you're trying to deploy any kind of infrastructure in the county. So we're glad you have the information to sort through it now, or at least have a start. So I'll move on to a couple more insights on agriculture. In McHenry County, I think Adam is plugged in and responded that McHenry County farmers have expressed a preference for fiber, and definitely is going to be reflected in the county strategy to deployment in the rural areas, giving farmers the highest level of connectivity that they can get, so that they can really utilize the 21st century ag technology that's available to them. Montgomery County received, like Bill said, a large number of survey responses from ag entities. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a lot. So the percentages on those questions kind of carry a lot of weight, I think. And one that I pull out there is 2% of those ag entities were not satisfied. Should say not satisfied. So were satisfied, excuse me, 2% are satisfied with how their cellular hotspot connection supports their business functions. So no one is satisfied with how, if you don't have access to a fixed service, no one's satisfied with how that is supporting their agricultural operations. So really critical, really kind of shows the relevance of John Kostelnick's maps, that precision ag it's just game changing for farmers, and it doesn't cut it to be using cellular networks or hotspot connections to support those operations. And even just your farm office tasks become that much harder, and cut down your productivity if you aren't able to have a decent connection. So getting towards the end now, the strategies moving forward I want to highlight. In Fulton County, there's plans to continue supporting strategic management following their interactions with them. I think those have been really strong, and there's a potential to use match funding from the Just Transition Fund should their application come through. So that's an area where, if you are a Just Transition eligible county, like we a few weeks ago we had that meeting with Natalie Roper, and you identify a provider that is looking to apply in your county, and you might have some sort of matching, the 25% match that's required for BEAD applications. You might have a little bit you can offer, whether it's from ARPA funds, whether it's from a different source of county funds, or if it's in-kind contributions. The Just Transition Fund could add on top of that. That's an eligible use of their funding, is to provide some additional matching funds for BEAD applications. So was really happy to see that on Fulton County's responses, and it would be a really great use of that opportunity. Majority of BEAD ineligible locations in McHenry County are close enough to BEAD eligible PAUs that it may make connecting them more attractive to the prospective BEAD provider, which I mentioned earlier, but and also in, like I mentioned, I think in Marshall County, a similar situation where on the eastern side of the county, the ineligible locations for that are ineligible because they're being overclaimed by the provider, or they have an award that is blocking out their location from BEAD. They are likely to be served by the BEAD provider that comes in. It'll be much easier for them to connect those those locations because they'll be passing them to create their bead networks. And I think that will be crucial to mention that to providers in your conversation, saying, if you get this award, we'd really love to see you go to these surrounding areas. It'll likely make financial sense for them anyways, but a good thing to highlight in your conversations. Lake County, I'll highlight once more, really had a nicely detailed response to what they're going to do moving forward. And if Kay, you want to speak again briefly, that would be great on kind of what the team will be doing going forward.
Yeah, definitely. So as far as bead, this is a process that the county has been following since the beginning. And, through, looking at areas that are speed ineligible but still lack that quality broadband service, like theoretically served in areas like Long Grove, Lake Villa Township. And we also have, I'm not sure the situation in other counties, but uniquely unincorporated areas around our townships and municipalities. So looking at unincorporated Antioch, which is up in the top left corner or the northwest corner of the county. They still have poor speeds, unreliable service, or no fiber connection. And so, we really do want to encourage the competitive entry of alternative ISPs. And so continuing to have those meetings with, like Adam said, the ISPs that we haven't heard of before, that are new, trying to break ground in our region, and encouraging new infrastructure investment through future funding opportunities, keeping in touch with the Illinois office on those funding opportunities that may come through and how we can participate in that. And also keeping an eye on local incentives. We had ComEd come to us previously about last mile funding, and unfortunately the county wasn't able to participate in that, but keeping aware of those opportunities and seeing where we can support and where we can defer that to other local government entities. And then continuing to support device and digital literacy programs to mitigate the impacts of folks not being connected to internet. And so a couple of things that we've done is put together where all the libraries are that folks can get access to free Wi-Fi, and having that one pager available at the county buildings when our staff are interacting with folks. You don't have internet at home, here are the locations you can go to. And I think it was really helpful for Kim Courier to reach out to the ISPs and kind of see what details we've been missing in our recent discussions with them. And then going forward to have follow-up conversations with them is definitely going to be fruitful, I think, to get more information. And I really appreciate Reid you sharing that about Devin reaching out to the ISPs, because we had challenges with Comcast in particular. I think strategic management, when we spoke with them, they did actually share some like what they called confidential maps with us about their plans. And so if we can get more detail on that, I think it'll be really critical moving forward to see where the gaps are in those applications and how to lead the conversations with other ISPs.
Great. Yeah. I remember Comcast being one of the ones that she mentioned directly. And yeah, it's very important that, and I think we had discussions like this in previous cohorts where county ISPs were more willing to share what they called confidential maps, but they were more willing to share them with communities then. But then these BEAD rules come out and they become more guarded. So it's nice to have that signal from the office to move towards a more community involved strategy. All right, I think I'm going to turn it over to Adrienne to do this last slide.
Well, again, thank you to everybody for speaking out. Your stories have just been so motivating for us and for everybody else on the call. And Reid, again, thank you for coordinating the last presentation and putting the slide deck together. So before I turn it over to the Office of Broadband and to Hillary and her colleagues, I wanted to just say how important it is that you've gone through this program. You obviously, many of you have had ongoing efforts for years, but this is a very critical time for this program. And I know you all have been reading about various things, including the 90-day delay and the possibility that more money would be given to satellite. And we heard from somebody here that, yeah, it may work great, but it's very expensive. And that's obviously a big concern to so many people in our state, the affordability of service. So it's important that your voice is heard about trying to preserve the state's autonomy in crafting and managing the BEAD program. And obviously with Illinois, that is through Connect Illinois 4. So I was super pleased that both Lake and Montgomery let us know. So there may be others of you on this call that did this, but Lake and Montgomery did get back to us and say that they had reached out to their federal officials to give support to, as I said, to preserve the state autonomy so Illinois can implement the BEAD program in a way that is best for the communities throughout Illinois and particularly on this call. So that email came from Devin, and then we reinforced that, and we would appreciate if you haven't had a chance to reach out to your federal officials that you would do that. I think the message is very generic. And the message is states know their communities best. Don't have the feds impose rules or change rules or put new requirements on the program that would slow down. And so Devin gave an extraordinary presentation recently that said the program could get slowed down 1 to 2 years if we have to go back and do some of the steps that we had done before. So there are going to be opportunities, and Benton will keep you all informed. The Illinois newsletter is another way where you could learn about ways to get involved and have your voice heard on the national level. There are opportunities also to join some national broadband policy groups. And I know that Lake County has been very active in National Digital Inclusion Alliance. And even there were people I know who might have attended that conference that's now coming up in May. But here we've listed 3 groups for people to get involved in. We are members of all 3 of the top, and I'll save the last one for just a little bit, but Schools, Health, and Libraries Broadband Coalition is a national group that is addressing the needs of these community anchor institutions. And by the way, it's much broader than Schools, Health, and Libraries, but that was the name, Shelby Coalition, that they were given. And of course, as time has gone on, we realize some communities don't have some of these major anchors. And one of our, boy, Reid, I bet you could remember, but one of our counties in a previous cohort said our deer hunting lodge is our community anchor institution.
Yeah.
We had to say yes. You know, that was their community anchor because they didn't have a local hospital, healthcare clinic, library, etc. So John Windhausen, who used to be the executive director, has retired, but an incredible guy, is now taken over, and he used to run the Capital Projects Fund. So he's a very smart guy. His name is Joey Wender, and he's the new head of Shelby. National Digital Inclusion Alliance is for practitioners on the ground working on broadband adoption. So devices, affordability, skills. They have, I think, about 2,000 members nationwide. They have a great listserv. So if you ever have a question about, is there a curriculum for skills building, you would get a ton of answers from people in the community. They hold regular calls. So it's a no cost to join that. Lifeline Coalition is all about affordability. This is something that Benton runs, and so that's another opportunity. And then finally, I want to talk about state connections, because if you are close to your state legislator and you feel they could benefit from learning more about broadband, you could urge them to join this group that Benton manages. I think Reid, 40 odd states have representatives, and
I think it's 40. I want to say it's 48, but
yeah.
yeah,
Anyway,
it's a lot.
lots
We're
of
almost there.
representatives. We actually have, I think, 12 state legislators in Illinois already who have signed up for this. We do monthly calls, and it is an education session, really, because with turnover of state legislators every 2 years, you can imagine that there's a need to do broadband 101. And then obviously for those who are a little more involved or have been in these positions for years, we do get into more complex matters. So I just say here that if you're interested in becoming a member or joining any of these, please contact Reid or me and we can steer you to the right direction. Okay, so all
Adrian,
of this is, yeah,
if I
go
could
ahead.
jump in for a second, reinforce some of what you're talking about with the whole possibility of BEAD being changed. No surprise to anybody that I'm a fiber first guy.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at your community, if there's grid power at the location, then as a country, we can afford to put fiber there. It's cheaper to maintain a fiber connection than it is to maintain an electrical connection. When you look at a cost of like $10,000 a household to run fiber, people are like, oh my gosh, that's so much money, but it's for 30 years. You spread that over 30 years, you're talking about $330 a year to bring fiber to that location. And then when you look at a service like Starlink, I think it's absolutely amazing that Starlink is functioning and works. But those satellites only last about 5 years. Then they fall into the atmosphere and burn up. So just to maintain the existing satellite constellation, they have to be launching 100 satellites a month. Very different from fiber. We build the fiber, it's going to work for 30 years. Yeah, it can get damaged, things like that. But overall, it's a much better long-term investment.
And this is about having your voice heard. This is what this slide is about. I always say that part of the reason I love this program is we are creating ground up advocacy from people like you who participate in the program and get really interested in being involved in the space, see all the reasons that broadband can benefit the community. I say it's small a advocacy, and what we've seen in the 49 communities that we've worked with our various iterations of these programs is that they do step up and they're advocating and they're getting their providers to the table to apply for various funds and acting as partners in that. So I just want to close by saying welcome to the extended family of graduates of this program. And now I want to hand this off to the Illinois Office of Broadband Community Engagement team, who is there to help you, just like Benton and our partners on this for this program, but here to help you. And so, Hillary, if you could walk through your slides and then we'll go into breakout rooms. And again, thank you all so much for being here today to close the program.
Thank you so much. We are excited to be here today. Let me grab my slides here. Most of you know our office. I know we've worked with a lot of you. We have our community engagement team here today, or at least two of us. We've got myself. I work usually in the southern third of the state, and our good friend Alicia Ross here, who works in the northern third of the state. Our friend Ling Ling could not be here today. She covers most of you who are in that central region. So what we are going to do today is go through a couple of these slides to remind you who we are and what we can do for you as we transition out of the structure of broadband breakthrough, and how we can support you going forward. So here we go. Share maybe. Here we go. All right. Can we see those slides?
Yes.
Excellent. So, most of you know our broadband team here. We are made up of our two parts, our friends there at the university with the Illinois Broadband Lab, and those of us here at the state. We work very closely together, so you may see, the people from the state wearing the lab's logo and this and that and the other, but we work very closely together. What we do on our side is that we administer many of the grant programs. So the grant programs that we currently have going on, you've heard all about BEAD, that is administered through the state, called the Connect Illinois Broadband Grant Program. This round, they're pretty much one and the same. We've shifted a lot of the state grant kind of rules to align with those BEAD rules because we want to make sure that we are on top of it all. And of course, you've heard about our Illinois Digital Equity Capacity Grant, which we'll tell you more about. That is actually due tomorrow for those of you who are applying, May 8th at 5 p.m. We have four categories of our workers. We have our grants management team. So these are the folks who take care of the grants on the back end. Once we have awarded them, they are the folks who you'll talk to if you ever are an awardee for our grants. We have our compliance manager who makes sure that we are following all those back end grant rules, and I'm glad we have all of them. And our community engagement team, like I say, Alicia, Ling Ling, and myself, we are out in the world talking to you. We love getting out and seeing you in person. We love seeing you on screens, but in person's the best, if you ask me. And we also have a brand new policy team. So a lot of the things you've heard about as far as the dig once kind of policy making, as well as these back end BEAD kind of rules that we're trying to make sure that we're on top of, those are the folks there. So we are into three things, as again, access, which is the physical access to high quality, reliable, high speed internet services. That's internet services and devices. That's what we're talking about a lot with Broadband Breakthrough, right? Is that infrastructure piece. We're also talking about adoption, which includes affordability and the ease of subscribing. That's something that sometimes is left behind, but we understand it's no good getting fiber to your front door if you can't afford the subscription. So that's something we're really focusing on here and in the future, and is incorporated into the current rules of BEAD. It's one of those things that might be changing, which we do not want to see change because affordability is key, right, to universal connectivity. And of course, use. So once you have it, once you can afford it, how are you using it? Do you know how to use the internet safely? Do you know how to use your device in a way that, again, is safe? You're not getting scams or viruses, but also, are you using the tools? Are you knowledgeable about the tools that can make your life better? Do you know how to manage your finances online? Do you know how to use your telehealth and healthcare apps online? All the way up to, do I have the skills to embark on a digital skills career? So from the very beginning to the very, advanced users, we want to make sure everybody knows how to use it. And again, we've talked about our covered populations a lot. We're really focusing on these, not only because they're part of the federal regulations, but because these are vulnerable populations, right? About 80% of all Illinoisans fall in these categories. So it's not like we're targeting just a few folks. We want to make sure that everyone has equal access. So as we say, we work on this infrastructure side of things, the Connect Illinois grant program. This was a state-funded program before the BEAD program came, and of course is being funded by BEAD now. We're hoping, looking forward, things have changed since we last spoke about it, both on the federal and state level. But we hope to continue the Connect Illinois program on the state level. That ensures that state funding can overlap some of those federal funding areas. So things like, RDOF eligibility and some of these other programs knocking people out of BEAD eligibility. In the future, if we are able to fund on a state level around 5, that could help fill in some of those gaps that BEAD unfortunately is just not going to hit. So keep that in mind as we move forward. That's still very much in the theory phase, because as we said, a lot of stuff has changed on the state level as far as the state budget, but fingers crossed, we would love to continue that. We also, of course, have the digital equity side of things. The Digital Equity Capacity Grant, like we say, open for another 20 some hours, will fund our community-based organizations, local governments, educational institutions to fund those local programs, regional programs, some even statewide programs that people have submitted to us to support those digital inclusion efforts. We are guided, of course. I'm sure you are all very familiar with the State Digital Equity Plan at this point. I'm sorry, my dog would very much like my attention right this moment. We are working through this plan, right? It is our guiding light. So we are going to bring universal access to high-speed internet. Fingers crossed by 2030. If things change, that may push our timeline back, right? We want to leverage those new and existing resources to help communities identify and address those current gaps. That's what you are all part of right now, which is really, really great. And we really want to empower all Illinoisans to be able to use and participate fully in an increasingly digital economy and society. The stat that's usually thrown around is about 90% of all job skills are virtual or digital. We put that more at 100%, right? Who is applying for jobs with paper anymore? Almost nobody. So we want to make sure that everyone is able to have those skills to participate. The Digital Equity Plan is about 220 pages, so a little light reading for your Sunday afternoon. But really, you can read our executive summary and, of course, the appendices that will let you know some of those big benchmarks that we're tracking, the data that we're tracking. But these are the 5 implementation activities that we're really looking forward to. You all are part of a community of practice, right? You've come together to strategize together. You're sharing your best practices. You're sharing what's going well and what's not going so well, your stumbling blocks, your obstacles, and that's how we get better, right? So we want to build these these communities of practice in various ways. We want to have more stakeholder engagement. That's what Alicia and I do. We go out into the world and we make sure that everyone knows about what we're doing, and we help people link up together to increase their impact. We have these statewide and university partnerships, like with the lab. And of course, we are also working on that digital equity grant program. Capacity is great, but money fuels it, right? We got to make sure that we can pay folks. We got to make sure that there's money for equipment, money for studies, all that sort of things. We've got to make sure that we're funding things, as well as this last bit, the digital equity source of truth. I always say that it sounds a little bit like out of a comic book, but this is our data hub, right? So all of the data that we collect, we are going to make sure is available to you. And you know that on the back end, it has been collected, it has been analyzed, and it is being given back out to you. It is accurate. And that way, if we're all working off the same numbers, we know where the gaps are and we know where to target our work, right? So, last but not least, what can we do for you? There's so much that we can do, and obviously we could sit here and talk for about an hour, 2 hours or more about all the things that we do and can't have done and can do for you, right? But moving forward, as you move out of the broadband breakthrough kind of structure, how can we support your journey moving forward? So we can be your guide through these state and federal grant processes. They are not easy. Gosh, sometimes they're not even easy for us, but that is why we are here, to guide you through, to make sure that you have all the T's crossed and I's dotted, right? Make sure that you are eligible for things, as well as making sure that you're aware of any future opportunities, because we want to get money to you, right? We want to support your efforts. We can connect you with the other people and groups in your broadband and digital equity ecosystem. Like we say, more people working together increases your impact. And sometimes you may not know everyone in your ecosystem, and we want to make sure that you're all linked up together. We can help facilitate local broadband meetings or information sessions in person or online. Like you say, we like to get out on the road. We like to come see you in person. That's where a lot of times you find ideas and you get to chatting and realize that you have a lot in common and that sort of thing. We like to bring people together in rooms. So if you ever need someone to come speak or to help facilitate, that's what we are here for, okay? We also can connect you with resources and best practices in the field that are targeted towards your goals. We have a lot of stuff on our brand new refreshed website, but there's a lot of resources out there from those bigger groups, like Adrienne was saying, and NBIA, Shelby, some of these others. But also, if you're working in a very niche area, or you're working with specifically healthcare, you're working specifically with financial literacy, you're working with broadband infrastructure, we can help support you making those connections and resources. Most of all, we are here to support your goals, right? We are much bigger than we used to be, but we're a very small office. So you know what's best for your community. You know what's going to work in your community, and we are simply here to make sure everything happens, right? We want to make those dreams a reality, because dreams plus hard work equals results, right? So that's what we are here for. Feel free. I know that Alicia has put a ton of links in the chat there. Of course, I'm sure this will go out to folks. Those are our direct contacts, but you can also email our kind of general broadband email, broadband@illinois.gov, and we will get you to the right person if you ever have questions or need connections. That's what we are here for. So we just have a couple of minutes left, so I did want to open the floor here for some Q&A. I don't know that we have quite a lot of time for breakouts, but we can also set up meetings with your county specifically. We really want to get to know your goals better and how we can support you, right? So I will open the floor for Q&A. Also think about, let us know if there are any resources you didn't see here, or that, you would like moving forward, and let us know how we can help you with those. So I will click out of here and stop sharing, but feel free to jump in the chat or unmute yourself if you've got any questions. Good stuff. Well, like we say, we are around. All of these links are here. I will remind folks again about that deadline for IDEC tomorrow. But we are here to help you through your last minute application challenges. And of course, as we move into the new wave of BEAD, we do have a kickoff webinar coming up. I believe that is on the 20th. Yes, May 20th. And that is on our events page. So feel free to join us for that. Of course, that will be recorded and posted, so you know that you will be able to see it. Also, be sure to share your successes with us. Yeah. Go on ahead, Alicia.
Yeah, I was going to add, if anyone wants to go to a breakout session, a breakout room for a couple of minutes, we can do that. Reid, how are we on time for about 5-10 minutes if anyone wants to do that?
Yeah, I can be here, for as long as people need. So if Nancy needs to jump, you can transfer the meeting host over to me, and we can do that. I'll just say that I think I encourage all of you to set up time to speak with either Hillary or Alicia or Ling Ling, and share your project ideas going forward. Have an open line of communication with them. I think that's something they've stressed, that it's really nice to know what counties are doing and thinking about. Makes it easier for the office to. I think someone used, I forget who earlier in the conversation used the term grease the wheels, but it makes it easier for them to direct, resources in the correct direction to move things forward in your county. I think that was you, Bill, who said that.
If I may, maybe I'd suggest, Alicia, you reach out to McHenry and Lake counties and see if we can get a meeting on together.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. I've been waiting to hear from you guys, so this will be excellent. I know you all have been busy. I know you and Peter have been busy over there. So definitely, I
And I know
appreciate
Kay just said she had to jump off, so maybe we don't need to do a breakout, but maybe it'd just be a good idea to reach out to us and just try to get something on the calendar.
Let's do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And yeah, all three entities would be great.
All right. All right. Then I will do that. So let's set up some time for our different for our meetings, separate meetings. That'll be great. Thank you, Kay, and thank you, Adam.
All right. Yeah. How about I'll try and connect all the other counties as well with the relevant manager and try and get those meetings set up, because I do think it's a really good idea, having gone through this process, to share your thoughts, the community's thoughts going forward with the office, and make sure that everyone's on the same page and can help each other.
Yeah, and you all can reach out to us. Also, although we have just a few hours and counting for IDEC, please send us an email. We are here to answer those last minute questions. We're always getting emails, and we're able to respond and or even do a quick call if you need.
Thank you, everybody.
everybody.
So what I'm going to do is go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. That's a great optional time that people can add in. And then I'll hand over permissions to Reid and sign off for today. And thanks to all of you helping the counties, and thanks to the counties. It's been a wonderful program this time around. So I feel grateful to have been along this with you, and happy to help in the future. I appreciate you all. Thanks again.